Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Dan, and this is Tibetan Buddhism Shamatha week. So if you came here for a Tonglen, sorry. We're doing Shamatha and then Tonglen and then Shamatha and then Tonglen, alternating weeks. Is anyone new to this temple? Welcome. Is anybody new to Tibetan Buddhism? Welcome. Well, double welcome. Anybody new to Shamatha meditation? Welcome. Double welcome for you as well. So yeah, this week will be Shamatha in Tibetan tradition. We're actually doing a bun meditation this week. It's a series of 3, and we did inner refuge in the stillness. That's what I was looking for. Inner refuge in the stillness of the body. And then this week we're doing inner refuge in the silence of the speech. So the book that we're working through is, it's important that I mention it because we're quoting from it. It's Awakening the Luminous Mind, Tibetan Meditation for Inner Peace and Joy by Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, published by Hay House. Highly recommend. It's a very good book. And so this week, Inner Refuge through the Silence of the Speech, will be creating a space of silence and then viewing sounds from the perspective of that silence. So is anyone ever annoyed by the noises around you? Okay. Anyone want to give an example or?
Someone chewing too loudly.
Who?
Someone chewing too loudly.
Chewing too loudly. Okay. In what scenario?
In a break room at work.
Okay. Yeah. Smacking or?
Yeah.
That is just terrible. I have here. Anyone else want to? Okay. Is that?
Leaf blowers.
Yeah. Leaf blowers should have been. The sound of a rake is calming. The sound of a leaf blower is absolutely terrible. Okay, so I put noisy neighbor, crying baby, alarm beep, sirens, truck backing up. Those are things that plague me. When I have here construction and leaf blowers. So does anyone ever have tinnitus, ringing in the ears? Okay. And then finally, is anyone ever annoyed by the sounds, voices in your head? By voices in your head, I mean the inner monologue voice. Hopefully nothing worse than that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this meditation should help. It's not going to quiet anything. It's not going to separate anything. But what you're going to do is be able to find the silence in all of those noises. And so basically taking refuge in the silence that is already there. So an analogy I have for kind of the effect of this is if you're ever driving down the freeway and you hear, and your windows are down, or say your driver windows down, and you hear all the wind and everything, all the road noises, and it just feels like you're out there in it. And then you roll up the window, and I love that kind of sound at the end. It goes up, and there's that at the very end, and it's everything. And now all of a sudden, you still hear the road noises, but everything is like taken down. You're kind of separated from it because you're in your little portable living room, and now there's kind of this shell around you, and you're not like so. So this is kind of what we're going for. This is kind of based on this idea that all sounds that you hear arise out of silence. They arise from silence. They abide relative to silence, and they dissolve back into the silence. If there wasn't silence, you couldn't be aware of sounds. So with stillness, we also did a similar thing where you can't be aware of stillness if everything's moving with you. You can't be aware of motion if everything's moving with you. So we're actually going like 1,000,000 miles an hour right now relative to the Big Bang, relative to the background radiation. We can't tell because everything's moving with us. So the same thing with sound. I actually use this to my advantage. I live by a pool. So a lot of times there's kids screaming and, people have their boom boxes out there and they're just horsing around, whatever. So if I want quiet, I turn on some music. And what's interesting is it's not like the music drowns it out to where I still hear it, but the music kind of covers over it. I can't hear the noise outside at all because it can't arise relative to the music. It gets completely washed away in it. So if you're hearing a sound, there has to be some reference point, the space of awareness, the silence that's always there in the awareness is the reference point from which that sound arises, abides, and then dissolves back. So let me read a little bit from the book. Focus your attention and listen to the silence. You don't need to run away from noise to find silence. You find the silence within the noise. Begin to hear the silence. It is there. It has always been there. As the sky hosts the clouds, silence hosts all sounds, whether internal or external. And so that's one thing I want to point out too. We're doing, these 3 meditations are based on body, speech, and mind, which a lot of times are related to actions, words, and thoughts. Speech in this context is going to be both external sounds and internal thoughts that are being categorized as speech. So the general idea is that we're going to create silence by being silent and then connecting to that silence as that place of refuge. So the goal is to not get caught up in noises, but to experience sounds from that refuge of silence. And I think I said this, but connect to the silence. Okay, so yeah, we're going to connect to the silence of being by being silent is a kind of cool way to put it. Problem is, there's no real contrast for you guys. If I stop talking, then there's contrast because I was talking. You guys aren't talking now, and hopefully you're listening to me and not thinking about other stuff, so you don't have an inner voice going at the moment. So we need to create some contrast so that you guys can create silence. So I'm going to give you guys a very powerful and secret, so you can't tell anyone. I'm authorized to share it with you guys. 5-syllable mantra to create silence. And so it's like this. Try to memorize it if you can. Blah, 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 zip. So you're just making noise and then cutting the noise. So if you want, we can try this out together. It's usually good. We did mantra a few weeks ago. One thing I realized is no one had a chance to, we were doing the mantras in our head and no one had a chance to ever say them out loud. And I think that was not good because then they didn't know what the mantras would sound like in their own voice. So I want to do this out loud. So on 3, if you guys are comfortable, we'll just, hopefully in somewhat unison, we'll all go blah, 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 zip. Okay, so if everyone's ready, 1, 2, blah, 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 zip. And now hopefully you guys felt that, just like when the car windows go up, that coming to silence. You can also do this in your own head as many times as you need to. And so once you've created that impression, that space, that awareness of silence, the first thing that you're going to do is focus your attention on that silence. That's your refuge. That's what you're trying to keep. Then with your attention focused on that silence, you then expand your attention outward to include sounds around you, any thoughts in your head, and just maintaining that perspective of silence and watching everything arise and abide and dissolve while staying in that silence. And then you might find that you can actually start to see the silence in the noise and the silence. So it's not just that the silence is here and the noises are here and the thoughts are here, but the silence is actually here and pervading the noises and pervading the thoughts. So that's what we're going to try to do. Any questions on this so far? Okay, great. So we can do any posture you want today. Just make sure your spine is straight and that you're in an alert posture, not a slouched posture, that you're comfortable and well balanced, not falling over. You don't want to have to exert any effort to stay upright. And we're going to start by reflecting on our motivation for a few moments. So why do you practice? If there's a reason, is there any expectation of benefit? This will help with our enthusiasm, hopefully. And maybe as you're reflecting on your motivation, you're connecting with a deeper fundamental wish to have a happiness that isn't dependent on external causes, or to be free from a feeling of discontent that resists all external cures. And now you can go ahead and just relax your body for a minute. Let your breathing be natural. Relax your mind. No need to meditate on anything. No need to think about anything. As you continue to be still, you can close your eyes if that's comfortable. And then let's just do it out loud one more time, or you can do it in your head if you want. On 3. 1, 2, blah, 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 zip. And now just continue to focus on that silence. Maintain no self-talk intentionally. And then keeping a ground in that silence, expand your attention slowly to include all internal noise or voices and all external sounds or noises from the perspective of that silence and pervaded by that silence. And as many times as you need, anytime you get distracted, just come back to that mantra internally. Blah, 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 zip, and recreate that space of silence. If you've been distracted by a thought, or you find yourself repeatedly distracted by the same thought, that's totally normal. It happens to everyone. Recognize whatever the topic is, subject is that you keep being distracted by. Try your best to release it, let it go. Relax, don't bear down and try to meditate harder, and return to your refuge of silence. And just as it's okay to get distracted, it's okay to take a little break. You might get tired. You might find the meditation getting tedious. It's totally acceptable to take a 10 or 20-second break, open your eyes. If you're tired, just rest your mind for a minute if it's getting tedious. And then when you're ready, come back to the meditation with refreshed energy. I think the baby heard me. can all open your eyes if they're closed. And as you slowly come out of meditation, you can take a moment to reflect on your experience. We did have a nice little palette of sounds to keep us interested. I guess they opened a nightclub down the street or something because I was hearing the boom, 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 boom. So how did it go for everyone? Did anyone feel they experienced the sounds maybe that were going on in a slightly different way from that place of silence, from that place of refuge? So no one wants to participate, or no one felt any difference?
I could say that there were moments.
Okay.
I had a rough time with that baby going.
Yeah? Yeah, you weren't able to find the silence in every cry?
All the time, very hard time.
Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah. How about, so were most of you guys distracted by the external sounds? Did anyone find that they had to deal with any thoughts? Your voices. Yeah.
I went back and forth.
Okay.
There, you know, like when the thoughts arise and you start to notice that you're in your thoughts, you realize that the outside world dimmed a lot. At least that's how
It didn't what?
it dimmed. Like,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the noise of everything, like,
Yeah.
you stop paying, like, it's where your attention goes, right?
Mhm.
And there were very minute moments, like one or two or three, where like, I could like feel it all go away, almost like just like a present moment,
Mhm.
but it was very, very short. You know, and then I was like, oh, there's a baby crying. Oh, my attention went to that baby.
Yeah.
Oh, this is evolution. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. It's hard to keep the attention grounded on the silence.
on just the nothing, I guess.
Mhm.
You know.
Well, did you have any trouble creating that sense of silence, doing the mantra that I suggested, or
Yeah, that mantra didn't work for me much. I tried it a few times. There were a few like visualizations with it, but like,
did you try something else?
more than anything else, I had this moment maybe a year ago where I just was in like the universal river, I guess you'd call it, right? Like that little Satori moment, you know, and I remember that, and sometimes I can get back to it,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, sometimes those glimpses are what keep you going because you want to get back to the way that felt.
Yeah. And so like, but I have to be careful because I know that's just an experience in itself too. But like, there's that almost bodily and emotional feeling that's attached to it.
Mhm.
And I've noticed the more I can sync that with my meditation, the easier the whole thing becomes.
Kind of that flow state, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like something like that. You know,
Yeah.
I think we tend, at least I always tended to think meditation was just up here. And to me, the more I meditate, the more I realize it's not.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
a complete experience.
Well, and then try to realize too that up here is everywhere.
Yeah.
Your mind is not inside your head.
No.
Everything that you perceive is mind.
Yeah. And the whole universe is, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But your mind, everything
Yeah.
that you perceive.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, the argument can be made that the universe is also mind, but that's probably it.
Turtles all the way down.
Yeah.
Something you said struck me at the beginning. You said, "Does anybody hear ringing in the ears?" And I noticed a couple of people raised their hands.
Yeah.
One thing, I've always heard it ringing in my ears, but I thought everybody always did. And ever since you mentioned that, it's gotten louder.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
your
always refer
attention
to it
is
as
now.
the eternal dial tone of life.
Yeah.
And I've always had.
Mhm.
I don't know. So
Yeah, it's called tinnitus.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just realizing that. I guess I've never not had that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, a couple points. One, that when I have tinnitus, I practice this meditation, and I find it very calming to have a place of silence. And it's hard because it's hard to find the silence in that high pitched.
Yeah, but I've always had it. But it is sometimes lower, sometimes higher.
Okay. Yeah, mine gets louder and less loud, but it's always the same pitch. The other thing I'll say is that they do have devices now that supposedly cure tinnitus. My I don't know how much they cost. My niece has one, and their ear, they put them in your ear, and they somehow noise cancel the tinnitus. So I wouldn't do it because I would lose an opportunity to meditate. It's a great challenge to do a silence meditation with that ringing, especially when it gets loud. And yeah, I also noticed that when you think about it, it does seem to get louder.
So there are people who don't have that ringing in their ears?
Who here does not have tinnitus? There are 5 people in this room that do not have tinnitus.
Exposure to loud noises without wearing hearing protection is usually the cause of it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So are we supposed to find, this might sound silly, are we supposed to create silence from the noise? Or are we supposed to find the silence within all of the noise?
The first step is to create silence by being silent. So by not talking and not thinking thoughts internally, it's a little easier to do with the stillness because it's easy to be still and then go, oh, I can find that stillness. It's harder with silence because, especially like in your position, because you're not talking anyway. And that's why I gave you guys the mantra to try to create noise. So you're intentionally creating noise when you're going blah, blah, blah. And then when you do zip, you're stopping. And so just like you would try to find your stillness if you stopped moving, you're trying to find that silence that you created by not making noise. It can be a little hard to find, but I would say that's the key point, is to be able to find that silence. Then once you can find that silence that you created, or that you're creating by not creating noise, then you work outward from that silence and try to let that silence pervade all the noises. So at that point, yes, you're trying to actually find the silence. It's like the silence is the background to the noise.
So if I can only hear noises, then I'm not doing it right.
Well, I wouldn't say there's doing it right or wrong. The noises don't go away.
Yeah, it just seemed like it was very the noises were very highlighted for me.
Yeah, okay. That could be a good thing. Like they say, when you first start meditating, your thoughts seem louder because for the first time, you're creating an awareness around them, and you're creating an empty space that makes them more prominent, a calmer space that makes them more loud. So if the noises were more loud, it might be you actually were connecting to the silence.
I also want to point out that baby stopped crying the minute we started talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when I was talking earlier too, in the interim, it stopped. So they can hear us just like we can hear them.
Buddy,
Yeah. That baby digs the Dharmabums.
Fuck with that.
So
I have a question about, so is taking refuge in silence similar, or put it this way, is finding acceptance or just being present with noise the same as I don't know, like
yeah,
I got to a point where I was like, okay, I mean, obviously I hear things.
Mhm.
We can't physically stop the baby crying.
right.
There were periods where I was like, baby, wah, and then there's a little tiny pause between the next wah, where I thought, okay, is that the silence I'm supposed to be taking refuge in, that pause of the baby crying? I was like overthinking it sometimes, I think. But then I don't know, I guess I just kind of like got to a point where it was like just being okay with what is or what, and just like being present with the silence or the crying or the cars or engines or whatever, or what's in my head. There was, and there was a period of time where I was thinking about a situation with my sister, and I found myself going down that storyline.
Right. And
then I just brought myself back to the baby crying or whatever.
Yeah. So again, the key is to be able to to find that silence, and that's why I recommend with your eyes closed, because like maybe with me when I do like the blah 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 zip, the silence is kind of in my head, and I kind of latch onto that, and then from there, like there is, when you're hearing the noise of a baby crying, it's like the baby crying. Even if you look like the sound wave, there's that basis, and then there's the sound wave coming out of it. Sound is an oscillation between silence and air pressure and no air pressure, air pressure and no air pressure. So the way I kind of picture it is that it's like the silence is like underneath that. Here's the baby noise, and here's the silence underneath that, and they're both running together. Mm-hmm. And normally we get caught up. We're following that top line, the noise, and that silence is there. That's the space that's hosting the noise, and it's going unnoticed. So you're just kind of shifting your attention from the noise down to that silence. It's probably tricky. It's probably not something that everyone's going to be able to, because with these meditations, I've done them more, so they're not always necessarily great beginner meditations, but in the sense that you can do them, but you're not necessarily going to master them. And then next week we'll be on to something else. So that's why I highly recommend everyone practice in the weeks between. And now we have 2 weeks between every Shamatha meditation. So you guys have plenty of time to practice this before we move on to the next. But sometimes it's good, and I found this too in my own practice, that I would learn a lot of meditations that I wasn't ready for, but then later, later you go back to them. Yeah, it pops up in your head, and you're like, oh, this would be a great time to practice silence meditation.
It's also just an Eastern way of learning. It's not linear.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
It's recursion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
There was almost a weight or a texture to the silence that I experienced.
Great.
A couple of times.
Yeah.
That I don't remember exactly how you just said it, but it felt as though the silence is the medium which carries the sound.
Yes.
Right. Like, so it's always there. It's always available, but because something else is happening above it, it's hard to get into that medium. But for me, when I felt that texture and the weight, I was like, oh, there it is.
No, those are great words too. Texture and weight. I would definitely agree with that. Mm-hmm. I mean, then another analogy you can use too is that there's space everywhere, and then things appear in that space, mm-hmm. or clouds appear in the sky and disappear in the sky. I'll get to you in a second. But it's just, I think it's harder to visualize, and visualize isn't even a valid word, audio-lize or whatever the word would be. That it's easier to connect to that space and things being in the space versus sounds and things, any sounds actually being in that silence, mm-hmm. the same way that visual phenomena and stuff arise in space. But
I see the same way though.
Huh?
We actually see the same way. We just don't know it. Like flicker. Like
oh yeah.
Process.
Oh yeah. I used to have a TV that would flash red, green, blue images, one by one. And some people could actually see it, and they wouldn't want to get that kind of TV. But for most people, it just shows as a color image, even though it's quickly flashing. Anyway, Peter.
One question and one observation. Sounds what you're saying is like the visual equivalent of background figure, background figure. You've got this optical illusions where you focus one background, and it's always going to be the contrast. So you have the same thing in sight. You've got the background, but you're always focusing on what's moving. But you have to focus on the background. Now, my other question was related to this, because I'm new to Tibetan Buddhism, so it's like Anapana meditation, similar to Shamatha or Samatha, more like not a meditation technique, but a place.
Shamatha is basically just attention training.
But and Anapana is attention training on the breath itself, period, nothing else.
Anapana.
It's from a Zen kind of thing. But
what word are you saying? Anapasa?
Anapana meditation.
Because Anapanasati.
It's also like
yeah, it's like So Anapanasati is kind of like shamatha that gradually moves into vipassana.
Yeah, exactly like shamatha, like Anapana gradually moves into vipassana. It's just the basic focusing on the air on the nostril. That's it. Mm-hmm. So that's what shamatha is kind of. Except
so shamatha, the part of that meditation where you're focusing on your breath, and just keeping your attention on your breath, And then whenever you get distracted from that, you gently return your attention back to the breath. That's shamatha.
It's
Yeah.
a single focus. It's just you
Yeah,
on
yeah,
anything
yeah.
you want to
So
focus.
in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there's it's like they're trying to, so focusing on the breath is a great meditation, a great shamatha meditation for anapanasati, because you're going to be using your breath to connect to your vipassana. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there's all different kinds of shamatha meditations. Usually there are some, like we did one where we're just focusing on a rock and it's just keep your attention on the rock. But a lot of times there's a dual purpose. So the visualization, so you're building, we were doing visualized objects. So you're building your visualization skills as you're learning shamatha. Or there's somewhere you're doing mantras, so you're starting to work with your subtle body as you're doing shamatha. Or we did one where we were throwing some vipassana prompts in as we were doing shamatha. And so with this too, it's a shamatha meditation in that we're focusing our attention on something, but then we're also having this kind of second purpose to be able to find and create these inner refuges, which are just really, as he presents them, just ways to overcome our habitual pain. He calls it the pain body, pain speech, and pain identity. And I'll actually get to another quote in the book that kind of expands on that. But before I do, I want to make sure there's no more questions, comments, or feedback. Did anyone else, just by show of hands, have the same kind of experience where they felt that texture or weight of a silence? Okay, that's good to hear.
But the minute you say I felt it is when it goes away. At least for me. I'm like, oh, there it is.
It's elusive. It's the little floater in your eye that when you try to look at it, it goes. Yeah. So the thoughts that become distractions can sometimes be more than distractions. They can kind of bring you down with anxiety, self-doubt, or fear. And that's what Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche calls the inner critic. So I'm going to read what he says in the book about the inner critic. How is it possible to overcome your inner critic? It is not possible by more talking, not even by more intelligent talking, which is what we commonly try. Simply allow the voices and feel the space and the silence around them. Feel the silence in the voices rather than trying to find the silence in the absence of the voices. As you hear the silence, you are able to host the chattering mind. So the analogy I came up with here is when I read the host, the chattering mind, was it's kind of like if you're so you're throwing a party for this inner critic, or you're throwing a party, you're in the kitchen, and the inner critic's in the living room talking all this stuff about you. So as the host, you're just gonna you're not gonna go in and confront them. You're just gonna sit there and you're just gonna listen. You're gonna go, oh, that's interesting, all these things that they say about me when I'm not in the room. And that's it. You're not going to engage with it. You're not going to let it pull you in. You're going to keep that distance if you're in the kitchen and that's going on elsewhere. So another thing I had, from the perspective of silence, the critical voices are just sounds. And there's actually more wisdom in the silence than there is in any of the discursive thoughts going on in your head. And so let that wisdom guide you into mental activity that's actually productive. And one thing I think we do a lot when we're dealing with our inner critic is that we're basically just picking out wounds that if we just left them alone and rested in silence, they would heal themselves. So I have one more quick analogy, and then we'll get back to meditation. That when we're observing our thoughts from this refuge of silence, it's kind of like being in a shark cage. And you can only, you're in the shark cage trying not to make any mistake that would allow the sharks to get you. So the one that unfortunately happens to us most, especially in early stages of meditation, is the shark just busts through the cage and swallows you whole. And next thing you know, you've been distracted. So that's basically when a thought comes up in your mind, and next thing you know, it's your thought, you're thinking it. You've become that thought, and that's now your perspective. Another one would be don't engage the thoughts, just like the advice from the book. Don't talk back to them. that's kind of like sticking your hand out of the cage to try to pet the shark. And then finally, don't look at, and I find this one very helpful, when there's thoughts arising in your head, don't look at their referent. So whatever it is that it's talking about, try not to go to the emotion or the memory or the imagination, the I guess daydream, but like a nightmare version, whatever scenario it's trying to drum up, and just let it just be words. And so my relating back to the shark cage is that the shark looks really interested in like a seashell or something and gets you to like swim out of the cage and go looking at it, and then it gets you. So I don't know. The shark cage analogy was a little bit of a stretch, but maybe things like that can be memorable. Okay. So and then of course every time you're lured out of that refuge of silence, which will happen, create that silence, use the 5-syllable mantra if you want, or whatever works for you, and return back to that refuge. Always come back, whenever you're distracted, always come back to that refuge of silence and start expanding out from there. So we have time for one more meditation. It won't be as long as the last one. Go ahead and get into your meditation posture. You can relax your body, let your breathing be natural. Relax your mind. You don't have to meditate just yet. You can close your eyes if it's comfortable. And then we'll just do it silently this time. You can do the blah, 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 or whatever works for you to create that initial silence. And then focusing on that silence, continuing to maintain your perspective from that silence, becoming aware of other noises in and outside of you. And this is way late, but I forgot earlier to welcome everyone who's watching virtually on YouTube. And I have been looking for comments and would have responded to any if they were typed in. But if you want to type anything now, I will respond. We have a couple minutes for any final questions or comments. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I was really obviously quiet within, not moving, but finding that silence was really hard. But then I found it with like more of a visual, like collective silence with all of us.
Mhm.
That really helps me. So I don't know if that makes sense or.
Do you think it was helpful that the baby stopped crying?
I don't know, because there's still, now we have like the cicadas and, whatever.
Yeah,
There's a lot of,
yeah.
there's still noise.
Yeah.
But for me, like picturing all of us in our silence collectively.
Yeah.
Really like.
That's good,
on
good.
Silence.
So you felt that kind of texture of silence?
I finally felt
Yeah,
that.
great.
I finally
Great.
felt
Well,
that.
that's one of the great benefits of coming in here to meditate as a group.
Yeah, so I did online, I did the whole 8 weeks with you online.
Okay.
Because I couldn't make it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that this is the benefit of being in a group.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you could finally come in.
Yeah, thank you.
So the texture and weight,
Uh-huh.
I saw it almost like a curtain.
Okay.
And there was movement to the curtain. And when something came into my mind, thought or sound, I was almost able to visually like knock it off of my right side into that curtain. And
Okay.
it like dissolved into
Really?
everything.
So you're talking about thoughts, right? You weren't able to.
There wasn't a lot of sounds for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was mostly like.
Well, because if the sounds actually go away, that's a problem.
That's fair. Yeah, that's totally fair.
But
No,
if your
it
thoughts
was-
dissolve, that's
it's-
excellent.
it's- Yeah.
Yeah, and you might also get that sense of sounds more dynamically bubbling up and dissolving back into the silence, which is what I always try to do with the tinnitus, is actually try to hear the individual moments of the, so it's instead of being, it's, and hear those little bumps. But that's great. Yeah. So the curtain, why was it a curtain? The curtain of silence?
Oh, wait,
Or-
the weight and texture.
Oh, okay.
That
It was like a fabric.
Yeah, something.
Okay.
That just
And then you
slowly
knocked
moved.
the
Yeah, it was just
thoughts
knocking
into
thoughts
the- and they
into
just-
things, and they dissolved in the
That's
curtain.
awesome. Wow. It's superpower. So, yeah.
I have this sense of, it's now an image, I didn't think about it that way before, but of like being like a seagrass in a body of water. Like kind of that the sounds were all the textures of the water undulating, these like bubbles.
Yeah.
But they're part of this same fabric. And like instead of like kind of pushing back against them, I felt that the meditation for me is somehow kind of flowing subtly in that very gentle current of something.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah. I think it's kind of what we were talking about earlier with the flow. If you get into that state where you feel like your mind is just kind of flowing along, and that's a great place to be. Yeah, excellent.
I found myself visualizing the refuge of silence, just like in the air.
Mhm.
Like just all of this air is like there's no noise really, and just
Yeah.
empty space.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, okay, that's
Yeah, that's cool.
comfort.
So you literally took space as the place where sounds arise from and dissolve back into, right? Which is more concrete than trying to imagine like silence as some abstract entity. That's really good.
But it kind of is a little abstract, because air, what is air?
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
grasp it.
But literally, sound does arise out of the air. It's compression in the air, and so that's a great way to look at it. So did you feel you were able to connect to that kind of refuge of that space of silence a little bit better?
Yeah.
Excellent. That's great. Good. We are out of time, so we'll do dedication of merit really quick. Join your palms. May any merit gained from this practice benefit all the living beings without exception. And may all of our words and all of our actions do the same. Thank you, everyone. We have a host. My notes say Tom, but it's Anna. And she'll come up with a few announcements, and then y'all can go.
Hey everybody, I'm Anna, tonight's host. We opened the Dharmabumtemple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and no one is looking for students. They're simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have our recovery sangha that meets several nights a week for anyone with addiction, and our food distribution program is every Thursday at 4:30. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and is also posted on the entryway out there above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book that you like in there, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you're done. If you can, please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. And if a few people could stay to close and latch the windows, that would be really helpful for us. Thank you so much for being here, and we wish you well and hope to see you again soon. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Next week will be, I want to say Lojong, Tonglen. And then hope you guys all show up for that, and then hope to see you guys all in 2 weeks.